let's get started. Good afternoon and welcome everybody to our Solar Assessment for Business webinar. My name's Sonia Williams and I'm the Renewable Energy Innovation Officer at the Inner West Council. So today is our first foray into industry-specific events, and we'd like to thank Michael Clark at Source Brewing for his assistance in promoting this event to the members of the Inner West Brewers Association. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we broadcast, the Gadigal and Wangal peoples of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present and future, as well as all elders on the land in which this broadcast is being watched. This is and will always be Aboriginal land. So why are we here today, and why is the Inner West Council interested in supporting businesses to go solar? Well, the council adopted an ambitious climate and renewable strategy in late 2019, also declaring a climate emergency. And in addition to walking the walk ourselves by setting a net zero emissions by 2036 target for council operations, also realised that we want to be supporting community emission reductions. So that includes households, multi-unit residential strata properties and business sectors. So with this challenge, early last year, Council went out to market via an expression of interest for service delivery partners. And we ended up selecting Energy Action, who we're going to be hearing from today, with an independent solar feasibility assessments. They use a two-staged service with an online platform that can continue to a live installation auction, which is a streamlined delivery. And then the second offering was to another Australian innovation group, SolPod, who offer a relocatable rooftop solution, which is a good answer for businesses that perhaps don't have a long lease or don't have security of staying in the same building, or perhaps the building is looking to have renovations or extensions. So we've also, as part of the strategy, looking at supporting local community energy groups. I think we've lost the slide, but it's coming back up here. And so community energy groups who are active in the Inner West, they are keen to engage with businesses to crowdfund for rooftop solar systems. And we'll hear how this works in practice with the case study from Richard at Young Henrys, who's partnered with Pingala Community Energy. So this is our second round of running this program. We had put out an invitation last year and took a number of businesses through the program. And after having a delay in release for COVID lockdown this year, we're happy to launch round 2 from today. So in addition to this webinar, we'll be doing a targeted mail out to businesses that we've assessed to be good candidates for solar. So those letters will go out next week, and they'll be enclosed with a fact sheet that explains the community energy groups that are offering that are participating in the Inner West area, with contact details and also some information about the relocatable service. So what we're doing is we're sending letters to owner-occupiers, separate letters to tenants, and separate letters to landlords. So the aim is to have all groups communicating with each other so that there's open communication and understanding of the next steps to looking at solar feasibility. Before I hand over to our presenters, I'll just go through some of the housekeeping. So we'll have a case study next with Richard of Young Henrys, and we'll have questions relating to that at the end of Richard's presentation. And then we'll move on to Energy Action. I believe Damien's unable to join us today, so we'll have questions after Ed's session. And the questions we ask, if you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see a Q&A. So if you could put your questions in that Q&A and not the chat. The chat will be used for if any of the speakers want to put in any links or any follow-up notes, but the main capacity to ask and answer questions will be via the Q&A function. We're also recording this webinar, and we will make the slides and the recording available to both the Inner West Brewing Association members who aren't able to join us, and we'll put it up on our website. So without any further ado, it's my great pleasure to introduce Richard Adamson, co-founder of Young Henry's Brewery. Richard manages the technical and brewing operations at Young Henry's, and they are looking at working with a second stage of community energy funded solar and preparing for a second solar farm to be installed atop their brewery later this year, working with community supporters and Pingala Community Energy Group. So please join me in welcoming Richard. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia, and thanks for having me. I was going to just sort of start by just saying that I don't think you need to have all your ducks in a row to start thinking about sustainability. It is a journey. You'll find some quick wins, and then you'll find some bigger problems along the way. And energy is a major part of what we do as brewers, and solar is a good part of the solution. But it makes up, I guess, many facets of what is sitting under the umbrella of sustainability. And I think now with what's happening with COP26 and the targets that the federal government, I believe, has agreed to, if you're not thinking about sustainability in your business now, you better start, because there'll be an expectation from customers that you as brewers or distillers will have some sustainability goals. And when we looked at our sustainability goals recently, I think you need to kind of have a holistic approach, and it does come from the Sustainable Development Goals set by United Nations, and there are 17, as you see there. These are global, obviously, and I guess some of them you think, well, what has corporate responsibility got to do with that? Well, you can sign the UN Global Compact as a corporation, and that says that companies' values and principles are aligned with those sustainability goals that they have set. And there's 10 principles under the UN Global Compact, which you adopt and put into your strategies, policies, and procedures. You have a culture of integrity, and you'll uphold your basic responsibilities to people and planet. Here are the 10 here. So as you can see, there's broad headlines of anti-corruption, human rights, labour standards, and environment makes up a part of that. What you're doing when you sign the UN Global Compact is you are stating that you will report annually on your sustainability goals. It doesn't say that you necessarily need to achieve them. In fact, you could report that you go backwards in terms of you're trying to reach your goals. But what it does is it holds you accountable by making sure that you are reporting publicly on what your goals are and how you're going about achieving them. You can see here that the standards, the Global Reporting Initiative, is broken up under different standards on your reporting. So economic, environment, and social are the broad headings for that. You may have heard about B Corp. So Young Henry's has signed the UN Global Compact. We'll be probably announcing that in the next coming months. We're also going through the B Corp certification process. There is a slight difference between the two. The B Corp certifies that businesses are of a high standard on social, environmental performance, on public transparency and legal accountability, whereas the GI1 reporting is just a public reporting on those. They do interlink, so one will definitely help the other. And yeah, here's the reporting principles: completeness, accuracy, balance, clarity, comparability, reliability, and timeliness. One thing that the GIR reporting asks you to do is do stakeholder engagement. So this is kind of the foundation of setting your sustainability goals. So first part is to identify the stakeholders, engage, and then be transparent with them. So I think I've got an example here from HBA, Hop Products Australia, which is one of our suppliers, and they identified these key groups as their stakeholders, and they had the input into setting their sustainability goals. Once you've done that, you then set out a materiality matrix. So this one is from Molson Coors, and you can see on the x-axis there, you've got importance to stakeholders and why you've got the impact, and then they set out on that matrix those different goals. So they set alcohol responsibility, water risk, energy and carbon. Waste and packaging are in that top tier. So energy and carbon for them is a key one. And I think it would be a key one for most breweries as well. And then yes, financial management principles is the other component, and it covers a lot of facets. So obviously, governance, paying your taxes and paying your suppliers on time, having codes of conduct, looking after your privacy and data security, training and development, diversity, inclusion, and community. And within the brewing industry, at least, the Independent Brewers Association has a code of conduct, and in broadly speaking, it states that you must comply with the law, have respect for individuals and groups, responsible management of hospitality, festivals and events, and responsible marketing. And that's really around making sure that you're inclusive, and there's a key issue within, I guess, in a lot of industries around sexual harassment, and that's an important thing in terms of responsible management of venues and responsible marketing as well. Under social responsibilities too, we need to look at some key targets. Gender diversity within the brewing industry, and I'd say the distilling industry as well, is something that needs to be addressed. The gender pay gap, racial diversity, inclusiveness, workplace health and safety. It is a potentially dangerous environment working within a brewery, and workplace health and safety and well-being is an important facet of your social responsibilities. And then supporting communities, and you can do that through volunteer hours from your staff and direct investment as well. Social responsibility, we've talked about marketing, but truth in labelling I think is very important, and that stems all the way from alcohol content through to origins. Responsible consumption and harm minimisation, making sure you're not appealing to children. I think it's important that we look at alcoholic strength, and we have low to no alcohol products available, and no sexually suggestive or offensive names or images used in the marketing of the products. So on to what you really came here for, I think. And I just thought it was important to put environmental sustainability within a broader context, that it's not just the only platform when you talk about sustainability, but it obviously is a key. And that is that within brewing, you've got a lot of challenges around sustainability, and energy is a major factor. And where the challenge is it's through non-renewable sources and inefficiencies within the brewing process. Agriculture is another part, so we are working with agricultural products, barley and hops, packaging and distribution. So there's I guess a large CO2 equivalent cost associated with our packaging and distribution of our products. Water is a key component to brewing and distilling. And then CO2 production, so mitigation and reuse of CO2 from fermentation. So how would you tackle this? Looking at your carbon footprint is a good start. So Young Henrys is doing a project now to measure our carbon footprint of our brewing processes. We've engaged a company called Pangolin to assist us with that. I take an example here from Fat Tire out of the New Belgium Brewing out of the US, who did a research on the carbon footprint of their product. So I think it was, probably the headline's probably the most important one to look at here, and that is that a 6-pack of their Fat Tire Amber Ale produced what would be the equivalent of a single tree would take almost 2 months to offset. So that's a significant, I think, carbon footprint for a product. And then they broke it down, and glass for them made up a lot, and then raw materials, cardboard, steel, all that sort of stuff that goes into it makes up a fair chunk. And natural gas was a large cost for them as well, depending on how your brewery is operating, whether it's running on gas or electricity. And then electricity makes up another component. So as I said, energy is an intensive, brewing, is an energy intensive business. Energy consumption for Australian brewery is around, upwards of 38% of production cost of beer. There are multiple sources of electricity, of energy, electricity or gas. It is possible to look at on-site generation, and we're talking about solar today. Biogas is another direction that could be complementary to solar. You're definitely not replacing, because not everything's going to run on gas. But if you are doing a mix of electricity and gas, biogas is something that we're certainly looking into, and I think we'll hear more about in the future. It's probably not as accessible as solar is right now. And then, can you source renewable energies from the grid to complement what you're generating on site? Along with looking at your sources of energy, it's good to have a look at your efficiencies. So, how are you using your hot water? How are you storing it? How are you reusing it? Refrigeration, is it the most energy effective way of doing refrigeration? And that goes down to both processes and equipment. Having new equipment's quite often going to be more efficient in terms of electric generation. Have a look at the draw. Things like soft start switches can really reduce spikes in electrical demand. And then look at your processes and look at maybe, is your process the most energy efficient? Can you do time of use? Can you stage when different pieces of equipment are used? These practices will not only help your carbon footprint, but also definitely help your bottom line at the same time. So yes, as Sonia was saying on the introduction, we have community solar on our roof. So the first stage, which has been installed for a few years now, is through Pingala. It's owned by the community and leased by Young Henrys. Generates about the 25% of our electricity needs on the site at the moment. Through that lease arrangement, the participants are into Pingala are returning 6% on their investment, and Young Henrys are sourcing the remainder of ours through the solar farm, through Simply Energy, which was a group buy with AHA, and us as an associate member got to be part of that. So we're making up the rest from the grid from that solar farm. We've also done phase 2. I've misspelt that. Phase 2 will be put in place in 2022. We put a call out for investors. That's been placed. So the investors are in place, and that will double our capacity of generating electricity on site. So packaging materials, we'll just cover this really quickly. It's just something for you to all think about as well. There's energy consumption in manufacturing of glass, aluminium, and PET. And there's the greenhouse gas consumption associated with all those. Interesting with aluminium, most of that energy is in getting it out of the ground. So the great benefit of aluminium is the recycle recyclable nature of aluminium. Glass, you can't use a lot of recycled material in glass for food packaging. I think it only can be up to 25 or 30%. Whereas aluminium, 100% recyclable, and uses a lot less energy each time it gets recycled. I think those recycling rates are probably low to where they are today, particularly since we've had the return and earn put in place and curbside collection. The other thing to think about is water. Again, brewing is a water intensive process. 5 to 6 litres of water per litre of beer. I think it's important, incumbent on us to work our way to get that lower. And there's a lot of ways we can do that. CIP systems are probably the biggest way. So we look at having water efficient cleaning processes and reuse of chemicals as well. I think that's kind of it for me. I'll probably hand over to Ed to talk more about solar.
I think we were going to do questions after your presentation before, Ed, because Ed's got a lot of content. They might have forgotten what you've spoken about.
Okay.
Were there any specific questions for Richard put in the Q&A? Whilst that's happening, I might start off with one. So Richard, how does so you're leasing the equipment from the Pingala Group. How does the cost of the solar compare with grid and what you're buying through the AHA bulk procurement?
Oh, it's significant saving for us. So I think we're saving, around 20% of what we were paying overall by having the solar on site. So even with the participants making a return on their investment, we're making a saving on our power costs as well.
Great. And will you consider any, with this larger system, will you have any excess at particular times of the day, and will storage be more interesting to you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think the beauty of brewing and solar is that we are using the electricity when we're generating the electricity. So when the sun is shining is the times that we're brewing most of the time. But we have a site constraint at our site at Newtown with the amount of power coming into the site. I think we're capped out at 190 amps per phase. So when the sun isn't shining, we're starting up the equipment in the morning, we do have to have a staged approach to that because we do need the solar to meet our energy demands at that startup phase. So a battery solution is certainly something we're considering at the moment to help us pass that morning startup when the sun isn't hitting the solar panels.
Great.
Can I ask a question, Sonia? Is that okay?
Sure.
Just for Richard. Richard, thanks for sharing with us some of the sustainability foundations that Young Henrys have stepped through, and certainly that you've invested your time and energy in. I picked up a fantastic little case study, I suppose, from Young Henrys about a carbon capture process that you had running. I think algae was capturing the output of the brewery process, the fermentation process. And my question to you, Richard, was thank you for stepping us through some of the sort of efficiency steps and steps towards net zero that you've got in play. Are you looking to go beyond net zero and go net positive?
We'd love to be at that stage. So yeah, the research we're doing in algae is to do some CO2 sequestering from the brewing process. So with fermentation creating CO2, if we can capture and reuse that within a carbon capture system, to reuse that for the brewing process, and then some of the excess going into feeding that algae, we could then, what we're aiming to do is further reduce our carbon footprint by using that algae as a feed supplement for cattle. So with cattle producing methane through their digestive process, I think it's around 15% of Australia's greenhouse gas production, methane being around 30 times what CO2 is in terms of it being a first impact on global warming. If we can prove that system and the CO2 that we capture can then grow this algae, and the algae can go out with our spent grain to cattle and reduce the metagenesis, it may be possible that we can generate carbon credits, or at least offset a lot more of our CO2 equivalent in terms of our overall carbon footprint.
That's really inspirational stuff. Fantastic.
So by carbon credits, do you mean like would qualify for the Emissions Reduction Fund, the Commonwealth Government project?
So,
no.
Yes, that would be one avenue for it. If it's not
or voluntary credits.
Yeah, if it's not just all offsetting what we do on within our own processes. Yeah. If we actually had a surplus there, it could be possible to be a carbon credit.
Great. Okay, well, no questions have come through yet, so we do have Q&A at the end of the session, so I think it's prudent to now move on to Ed. Ed Hanna is the General Manager of Corporate Solutions at the ASX-listed energy advisory firm Energy Action. Ed has more than 2 decades of experience developing solutions to meet the needs of energy consumers and producers in the Australian markets. Over the last 5 years, his focus has been on driving the decentralisation of the grid to empower consumers and improving environmental outcomes. Take it away, Ed.
Thank you, Sonia. And thank you, Sonia and Richard as well for this opportunity to address the microbrewery and local distillery community of the Inner West and across Australia indeed. Young Henrys has obviously got a real leadership position in sustainability in that community. We've worked over the last 12 months with another business here in the Inner West, Blackfont Brewery, and we'll put up a little case study on what they've achieved. By way of intro to Energy Action, I've just got some of our corporate stuff on screen, what we're all about. We're looking to build a marketplace for net zero energy and energy management, and we're really all about trying to help energy consumers across Australia achieve cleaner energy in a simpler and lower cost way than they've been able to up to this point. 2 decades in the business, as Sonia mentioned, makes I guess the observation about the status quo is as relevant now as it was 2 decades ago, perhaps more so. The status quo is just not acceptable. It's far too difficult for energy consumers in this country to get access to clean energy at a reasonable price, and it's far too complex a market for people to navigate. It shouldn't be that way. We're really all about trying to help our customers and energy consumers generally reduce their spend and get to net zero as effectively as we can. Today, we're going to talk about solar. We complement what we can do in the solar space and what we do for constituents within the Inner West with services we provide to purchase or procure renewable energy for our customers, to help our customers monitor their energy spend. It really is a gateway to performance management. We don't do energy performance management per se, but we help customers set themselves up to take advantage of it. And obviously, we've got a footprint in the solar markets as they're evolving quite quickly. Where, I guess just to contrast a little bit with Richard's message about B Corp, we're in pursuit of the Australian Climate Active standard of carbon neutrality for organisations. we will achieve that for financial year 21. Hopefully we'll have that in place before Christmas, just to complement and supplement the products that we provide into the market. Okay, moving into solar, where that's what I'm going to talk to you guys about today. The real function that we perform and can perform for clients or energy buyers within the Inner West is to help them get the business case up and running to put solar on the rooftop and make the investment. When we first engaged with Inner West Council had identified that there were information gaps and asymmetries in the solar market which were preventing the take-up of solar. Our role is to help break those down by ensuring that energy consumers like yourselves have access to the right info. Okay, so what are the core and secondary benefits of solar to your business? First and foremost, as Richard has pointed out, a solar array represents a reduction in costs, in energy costs specifically, to a business, and it's a stepping stone on the path towards net zero. A solar array will reduce your scope 2 carbon emissions, that is the carbon emissions associated with your energy consumption. Beyond that, though, some of the secondary benefits, once you've started to on the pathway towards energy independence with renewable power behind the meter, then there are other revenue and business model opportunities which you can engage with. One of the more exciting ones that is going to create increasing noise and heat around us over years to come is electric vehicle charging. I've just got on screen a little unit that's produced by a company called Jolt, who have a zero cost model for both the owner of the property or the tenant of the property that wants to install the unit, but also for consumers as well, for people who want to charge their cars. And they are able to offer through, it's an advertising platform basically, able to offer a rental back to their host for renewable power and the chance to work on your property. Other opportunities extend though if you can tap into, let's call it the microgrid opportunity, which is the opportunity to benefit from export and import arbitrage. So as Richard alluded to, once you've got solar panels, batteries start to make a lot of sense. Once you've got a battery and a control system and you can dispatch power, then there are opportunities emerging for you to support the energy grid by exporting power back into the market when it is needed. And certainly as well to take advantage and make the most of differential pricing over the course of the day, to use power when it's use power from your panels when it's expensive, and to buy it from the grid when it's cheaper. The other opportunity, again, is as Richard alluded to, is the stakeholder and community engagement opportunity. Solar on the rooftop can be a very tangible message to the local community. It expresses that you're concerned about the environment that your community is living in, and indeed with the crowdfunding or community funding model that Young Henrys have used to fund their solar install, there's a great outreach moment there, a great customer moment there, where your stakeholders in your market can actually invest back in your business to put the solar on your rooftop. The next question, and perhaps a more interesting and important one, is why solar now? Is there a sense of urgency to act? Well, we would argue yes. A couple of the issues that we bring to your attention is the rising cost of solar that we're seeing globally. There is, in the immediate short term, a shortage of polysilicon coming out of the manufacturing companies in China. And in fact, 3 of the largest manufacturers in China, Trina, Jinko, and the third one escapes me, manufacturers of panels, that is, put out an open letter to the people of Europe and the US just recently, asking them not to buy their panels for a while, which indicates to you how dire it is if these organisations are saying, hey, don't buy our panels, we can't supply you right now. That's a pretty good sign that there is an issue with the supply chain for silicon in the short term. And that is having an impact on solar panel prices and the cost of projects. It's been coming for a few months over the course of this year. You can see on the graph here, this is in US dollars. It's the price of silicon out of China. And you can see it moving from just over $10 back in January to up over $35 in the last few weeks. Getting product out of China as well. We've got rising shipping costs, creating issues at the moment. And hence, we're actually seeing the first increase in solar panel costs into Australia that we've seen in 6 years. Solar panel costs, though, are just one of the input costs for a solar project. Solar panels probably represent about 20% of the import costs. So there's still good opportunities to do an effective project. But yeah, be aware that if you delay too long, you might have delays in your project. These cost rises that we're seeing are having about a 5% impact on larger projects, and about a 10% impact on smaller projects in terms of price. There's a backdrop, though, beyond the silicon price. We are aware, and actually one of the contributing factors to the slowdown in production out of China, as well as shipping, is energy shortages in China and energy shortages in Europe. So energy shortages in China is slowing down production of silicon. Energy shortages and high prices for fossil fuel energy, particularly natural gas, globally, are also having an impact on the supply and demand of solar panels. And we're expecting that over the medium term, the cost of solar is not going to fall back. We're going to see it gradually, or probably stabilise at where it is for a solar project. The other reason why there's urgency, delaying a decision to put solar in does cost you money. One of the key drivers for keeping the cost of solar projects down right now is the federal government certificates that will support solar projects. They have a sunset on them of 2030. So every month or year that you're not installing solar, your opportunity to access those certificates and achieve rebates is shortened. The last reason I'd just like to address you to, the Inner West Council have a registration program on now. If you can register before 15th of November, then we can provide you with a free solar assessment and help you build the business case for solar for your business. The other backdrop issue, I just wanted to put this up just to indicate the growth we've seen in the solar market over the last 4 or 5 years, and the growth that we're expecting across the energy grid over the coming years. So just on the left side of the screen, this yellow box here, as that grows, that represents behind the meter solar, as it's taking up an increasing percentage of generation into the Australian energy market here on the East Coast and across to South Australia. And you can see it growing rapidly. The models indicate that it's going to continue to grow. And just to give you some idea of the relativities of what's expected, right now, hopefully you can see this on my screen, there's about 60 gigawatts of generation, 60,000 gigawatts of generation capacity in the energy market, 60,000 megawatts, I'm sorry, 60 gigawatts of generation capacity across the market. What's expected to grow into that market over coming years is a further 120 gigawatts of solar, of renewable basically, solar, wind and water, and also battery generation into the market. In the behind the market space, 13 to 24 gigawatts is going to come, behind the meter space, is going to come on rooftops of businesses and homes still across Australia next couple of years. So the solar is becoming a dominant generation technology, and it's certainly here to stay. Okay, so the first reason for most business cases to get solar on the roof is to reduce energy costs. Solar can make an impact into your energy costs of between 60 and 70% of the bill for the proportion of energy that you can generate from solar on your rooftop. Richard mentioned about 25% of electricity consumption, I think it was electricity consumption, Richard, is for Young Henrys is now coming from the rooftop. This is pretty typical for what we see across all sorts of businesses. Typically, if we're sizing solar, certainly to fit on a rooftop, but around a business's load, we would expect that between 20 to 40% of their electricity demand from the grid can be displaced by rooftop solar. And when you displace it, it's this proportion of the energy costs here that we're able to impact. So it's your daytime energy usage and specifically your consumption, all of those units which are measured in kilowatt hours. For a small customer, that's about probably about 90% of their energy costs. For a larger business, 60 to 70% of your consumption of your energy bill will be directly related to consumption. And depending on how your business operates, a very large proportion of that will be daytime energy. One of the services that we provide through to our customers is we publish an energy price index on our website, energyaction.com.au. We update that every couple of days, and we use that to give energy consumers across the country a bit of an idea as to what a forward energy contract price would be over the next couple of years, based on deals that we're signing with our customers at any point in time. The graph on the right side of the page, you can see there's a fair bit of volatility over time in that chart. Energy prices have been dropping across the country over the last, certainly since about early 2020. They've come off significantly since late 2019, but we're just starting to see them pick up again, not to 2017, 2018, 2019 levels, but certainly higher than they have been for the last 12 to 18 months. The reason I put that up there is because when you're looking at solar, you're going to be putting equipment on your roof and into your business, which fundamentally acts as a black box. It might have a bit of an impact on power quality, but significantly it's going to look after itself, and it's going to last for 20 to 25 years. Certainly the panels on the rooftop will. The inverters are typically warranted for 10 to 12 years. So you may be looking at replacing the inverter in 10 to 12 years. But your simple payback model right now on a solar array into the inner west of Sydney or anywhere else in Sydney at the moment is probably about 5 to, at the outset, 7 years. We see probably two markets for solar. There is a market below 99 kilowatts where there is a particular rebate structure in place by virtue of those federal government certificates that I mentioned before. And there is a large market as well where there are rebates, but the rebates are payable over time. They don't come back to you as a reduction in capex. They come to you as revenue over the period of the certificate programs. So in short, just some sample paybacks we've seen, 20, 64 and 40 kilowatts across Sydney. Roughly 5 years is what we're seeing as a payback for a capital project. 99 kilowatts is a great sweet spot. The project is big enough to attract suppliers to work hard on margin and get a great install price to you. It's small enough to attract the STCs, 4.6 year paybacks. And then when you move into the larger market, you are looking at longer paybacks, but still very attractive relative to the life of the equipment, and able to deliver great benefits to your business in terms of energy independence and reductions in emissions. Okay, just in the little bit of time that I've got, I just wanted to share with you a couple of tips, and then I'll quickly show you some of the work we did with Blackfont, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about the process that we've got. So a couple of tips if you are looking at a solar investment at the moment. Tip one, avoid oversizing. The best return you're going to get for your solar is the kilowatt hours that you no longer need to buy off the grid. They are worth, fully loaded with all of the extras that the market puts on you for delivery of energy, probably 12 to 15 cents a kilowatt hour for every kilowatt hour you're not using. And be aware too that over the next couple of years, there are new market rules which mean that if you're exporting electricity back into the Ausgrid network, Ausgrid will have the right to charge you for that export, which will erode your payback and your business model a little bit. So yeah, our big tip, make sure you're sizing your array around your own operations and not looking to oversize it. Okay. Tip two, there are sweet spots, as I mentioned on the previous slide, up to 99 kilowatts. There are rebates payable back to you as a reduction in CapEx. Solar installers can organise that for you, and that does significantly reduce the paybacks on a solar install unit, 30 to 40% reductions. Yeah, that's what we're seeing on below 99 kilowatt solars. And again, below that, solar systems smaller than 40 kilowatts require less network connection costs. So there and less delays as well. So there are sweet spots right there. Third tip, everybody knows somebody who's a solar installer, but there are independent firms such as ours who can help you get the sizing right. And we run a process within Innerwest where we can help you with that. You can engage with whoever you know to do the project. We'll just help put the boot on your foot, ensure that you've got the power to be telling them what you need for your solar project, rather than them telling you. Okay, Blackfont Brewhouse, a great brewer of dark beers down in Merrickville. They worked with us last year to ensure that they had their business model right for their solar array. You can see it down here on the back half of their building. There are a couple of shading issues and obviously some space constraints. We worked with them to make sure we could maximise the space, but also ensure they got their payback. The other key point of our recommendation was to ensure that we got microinverters there, so shading didn't have too much of an impact on the system. Okay, Blackfont opted for an outright purchase, so they put up capital and they're looking at a payback within 5 years on their project. That project for them will supply their water heating, their refrigeration, their cool rooms. Couple of quick points just about how to fund and finance solar. There are a number of options, and we can step you through these in detail. Outright purchase puts the project on your balance sheet. It is the best payback, and there are asset tax write-offs available for projects that are done in the near term. Second option, power purchase agreement. Put it on someone else's balance sheet, enter into what is effectively a managed service for the provision of energy. and the supplier can take all the responsibility and risk on the project, and you can strike a price with the supplier for for their sale of energy to you. And then there are equipment retail equipment rental and lease options to explore as well. One of the more interesting and exciting ones is the Pingala model that was referred to early, community solar funding, which can bring your stakeholders back to your business and give them an interest in your business. And they offer a couple of different structures as well within that PPA and rental structures. Okay, when you deal with us, we'll step you through the sizing and the feasibility. The other thing that we can do is step you through the project management. This is beyond the scope of the Inner West engagement, but we can certainly work with you if you're interested to get your project right. Step one is helping you ensure you've got all the tricks and everything right for your scope, and you know where all the additional costs and so forth are going to be and what to push on with suppliers. There are project risks that we can step you through and support you with. And then what I've got here is just, I guess, a step-by-step that we'll run you through. So we do the assessment. We'll gather the initial offers, and then if you want to go further with that, we can start running the project for you. All the checks and approvals, collect final offers, either through our reverse auction process or through the tender process, to match you with the right supplier and right project. And then we can step you through contract management, the owner's engineer process, monitoring and verification. Okay. I might leave it there with just a few minutes to go, Sonia, for any Q&A or wrap up. Cool. I think we've lost Sonia. She's on mute, so.
Oh, sorry about that. That's bad MC behaviour. Question relating to the immediate price spikes due to shortages. Mm-hmm. Do you find that when solar installers, do they have decent stock levels that they're working down at the old price, or is everything, because it's such a low margin business, is it all just sort of just in time ordering and delivery? So will there be a flow on effect still getting some of the cheaper panels out into the marketplace?
The market's maturing, or has matured really rapidly over the last couple of years, the solar install market. So there is a fair bit of stock onshore, certainly for projects up to about that 99 kilowatt level. Beyond that, we did a project, I think it was finished last month, 2 megawatts, so 2,000 kilowatts. That stock had to be ordered in, and there was a slight delay, a couple of weeks while that got organised. So key message, there's plenty of big suppliers out there now. There's a very mature distribution network supporting those big suppliers. Smaller projects, there is stock onshore. Larger projects, it may have to come.
Great. And your definition of a small and a large is what, 100 kilowatts? Yeah,
probably. Yeah, that's a smaller project. Larger projects, in this context, above about 150 kilowatts.
Great. Yeah, I think sort of in urban areas, that like the majority of the project sizes would be in the under 100 kilowatts. I think in our local government area, like the over 100 kilowatts, council has put one on at the Ashfield Aquatic Centre that was launched late last year. That's 250 kilowatts. There's a giant one on at IKEA Tempe, Princess Highway, Marrickville Metro extension, and also the car parks at Leichhardt Marketplace.
Marketplace.
Yeah, that's it. You're involved in that project, but they're few and far between. So I think our bread and butter is the smaller project size, and so that's it's encouraging that there is stock still available for those project sizes.
Right. Yeah. Look, I did say that we're seeing a small impact, up to about 10% impact on the cost of projects at the moment. Do we? I guess the key question is, do we see that price falling back down? There's probably enough, drivers globally for solar panels and that silicone to ensure that price of silicon stays high for a while. So no, I don't think that there'll be a drop in prices off the back of this. I think we'll probably see project prices stay where they are and maybe increase depending on how rapidly global demand for solar continues to grow.
Great. Well, I think you must have answered everybody's questions in the thoroughness of the content in the presentations. So in the interest of time, it's 4 o'clock, we might wrap up. As a follow-up to all of the registrants and the members of the Brewers Association, we'll send out the recording link and the slides, and then also the entry registration form for any potential groups that are interested in signing up for round 2. And thank Richard and Ed for their time, and also for Sarah and the team at Energy Action for assisting with hosting of this webinar on Zoom. And thank you everybody for your interest, and we'll be in touch and hope we get some great projects to work on for round 2 of our solar assessments for business.
Indeed.
So thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much, Son. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you. Bye.